If there's one genre I'm terrified of, it's the arcade rhythm game. Sure, they can be approachable up front, but attempting to invest any significant amount of time into one is a steep path of repetition and mastery. That's not to say they're bad, I just don't have the commitment, dexterity, or patience to pursue that. So I'm typically drawn towards those that focus on novelty. One of the most prolific offshoots is what I would call the fashion rhythm genre, which contains releases like Love and Berry, Aikatsu, as well as Prepara. If you're unfamiliar, these are comparatively simpler music games that have collectible clothing which the player keeps via physical cards. Scanning these allows them to dress up their character for bonuses. While the challenge level is reduced compared to most traditional rhythm games, it still ultimately focuses on grinding performances for the best score. A few years ago, I stumbled across another title that was a variation of this, Otocadoll, a Konami arcade release that, on its surface, shares many similar elements to the fashion rhythm genre, yet differs in major ways. Rather than playing as an idol who is trying to give their best performance, you're a battling doll who essentially dances to gain magic points, then strike. It's a rhythm RPG. However, your character's capabilities largely aren't determined by level. Instead, it's all about what they're wearing. Defeating or even losing to an enemy will give a chance at getting their weapon, clothing, accessories, along with crafting materials. Then use your wardrobe to build an outfit complete with stats and skills. After choosing a pose for fun, this loadout is printed to a card that can be scanned on your next play to load your equipment. Earlier builds will definitely become obsolete, but increased rarity along with a larger variety of outfits unlocks higher ranking iterations of attacks, different elemental spells, various status ailments, as well as support skills. This opens up a decent number of strategic decisions when playing dress up. The usual elemental wheel is here, as well as the ability to slowly burn down enemies via ailments. However, there are some setups that fit Otocadoll's more distinct mechanics. For example, some skills can reduce the enemy's MP, to basically rob them of their turn for as long as you can keep them below a minimum action level. Meanwhile, the computer can reduce the amount of lead time the player has seeing notes, or cover up the feedback on timing accuracy, which is relevant since the worse you perform, the less MP gained. While that may seem like a narrow scope of strategies compared to a home RPG, the punctual nature of the arcade experience doesn't leave too much space to dive much further. Most battles end after a handful of actions, so you often need to be quick in your execution. This is especially true since Otocadoll does add one additional layer that has a big impact on how harder battles play out. Each combatant has a meter that fills with 1 star each turn. When it's maxed out, it activates Princess Mode, or Hime Mode if you just want to use the Japanese name. Depending on the character, this can deliver a devastating attack, grant a massive stat boost, or debilitate an opponent with significant debuffs. This is often a match-ending move, essentially making each doll a ticking time bomb. In some ways, it feels like a mechanic to make sure matches don't drag out too long. It's an arcade game, they gotta keep the money coming in somehow. Although the additional ways these stars can be obtained add a lot to the battle strategy. There are abilities that grant them, but more importantly, getting hit also increases the meter by 1. For example, if an opponent decides not to strike on a turn, they now have 1 more star than you. This prevents you from simply trying to overpower foes with a flurry of low-powered attacks. You'll need a plan, which usually includes using alternative damage sources that don't provide stars, taking down an opponent quickly, reaching your Hime mode first, or being prepared to withstand the other doll's fantastical move. However, sometimes bringing the right loadout can negate all of this. Abusing the elemental weakness system alone can basically one-shot certain dolls, which given the game's nearly $1 cost per battle, can be a little disappointing from a playability standpoint. Designing outfits and posing your doll after a match is a part of the fun. Still, it's sad to only play 1 set of notes before a battle is over. The card creation also takes a good chunk of time, so it's not easy to hop right back in. I think this is typical for arcade machines that include these types of printers. That being said, if you're playing multiple matches in a row, this adds up. In general, Otocadoll isn't hard. Like other titles in the genre, it's a fairly casual experience. Even after losing a battle, you still get a chance at drops, as well as the ability to get a card. The input method isn't complicated either, it's effectively a 2-button game, in addition to a lever in the center of the cabinet that's used once in a while. Each encounter has a 1 to 5 star difficulty rating, but much of this is based around stats and attacks rather than intense rhythmic play. Even harder battles often start with a simple chart. As the battle goes on, it gradually gets more challenging per turn. Just don't expect high-level play here. That's not what this is trying to do. On the other hand, dragging out easier encounters can work to your advantage. Your doll's MP value seems to carry over between battles. If a foe can barely do any damage, I recommend dancing away until you fully fill that rainbow-colored MP bar. Not only does it give you an edge in the next battle, you also get to tap along to some pretty good tunes. I'm unfortunately an awful music critic. All of the songs in this video are from the game. I'd assume you probably have some idea whether this is your kind of thing. All the tracks are available online in a playlist, which I'll link in the description. While far from a slim lineup, it probably doesn't have the variety of longer running franchises like Aikatsu. I'd say there's at least 20 original compositions here, along with a handful of remixes. I like it though. There's a consistency to the soundtrack even as they extend into different genres. That consistency is carried over into other aspects as well. The idol-based titles in this space typically aim to cover a large swath of outfit types, where Otocadoll definitely leans more towards Lolita fashion, magical girl costumes, along with other adjacent styles, which helps build a cohesiveness to the world and character designs. However, some outfits are simply recolors. In general, the presentation is a bit polarizing. It is really flashy when it wants to be, but at other times it can feel a bit limited. Dance choreography is typically a bigger part of fashion rhythm games. Here, the battles don't even start with anybody dancing. Eventually your character gets moving, albeit with dance animations that are shared between multiple songs. It adds some flair, yet the opponent will always just stare your doll dead in the eyes. On the other hand, the title offers some nice touches elsewhere, like each level of an ability or spell having unique animations. Some of those differences are a bit more subtle, at the same time others are quite elaborate. A lot of these shortcomings are offset by the unique identity made by the combination of its gameplay, music, as well as presentation. I at least don't know of anything else quite like it. So how do you get the chance to play this wonderful game? Well, as far as I know, it's only available in Japanese arcades, so start planning that flight, maybe in the near future. I'm a bit worried it won't be around much longer. As of this video, there hasn't been a content update since 2017. While it's not hard to find in arcades per se, you'll see plenty of Aikatsu or pre-powered machines before finding a single Otocadoll one. There is a map of locations on the official website, but apparently it's inaccurate these days. Someone pointed me to a Japanese wiki page which has a list of game centers where it is still active. I really want to give a special thanks to Akito, who helped me find a location where I could record gameplay. This video would not exist without him. Also, his nickname is Uncle Otoca, which I think is pretty amazing. In this year of 2020, the Japanese community is surprisingly active, at least on Twitter. Though in person, they also had a fan gathering at an event in Tokyo in February, and apparently through, I believe, a yearly DJ event called Otoca D'or. I'm really glad they're still keeping the spirit alive. Though there are some ways you can have a bit of Otocadoll magic in your life without a plane ticket. Konami occasionally gives the brand attention elsewhere. They included some of the tracks in other releases, such as Pop Music, Reflect Beat, as well as U-Beat, in addition to 2 characters also appearing in an upcoming Switch strategy RPG called Solomon Program, which I believe is by the same developer. What I've played seems pretty cool, so please check out my impressions linked at the end of this video. Otocadoll is not a deep RPG, intense rhythm game, or maybe even the most diverse fashion rhythm title, but it never tries to fully be any of these. Instead, it succeeds in its own weird little place in between them. Thanks for watching. If you've happened to play Otocadoll, or end up playing it in the future, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it in the comments. Understandably, there's not a lot of English language discussion online, so I think there's quite a bit of value in sharing your experience. One Controller Port has a focus on games with a notable place in history, as well as titles with a distinct take on a franchise or genre. Visit onecontrolreport.com for videos, podcasts, streams, and articles. You can also follow me on Twitter and Twitch via the links in the description.